welcome to my studio. Welcome to this video. I'm going to talk about, what am I going to talk about? My painting process. I've just finished some paintings. Some paintings that I started in June and I'm filming this in October. They have been a sort of slow unfurling, a slow meander to the finish line, and I've really enjoyed having a bit of spaciousness, just letting the paintings develop at their own pace, not trying to rush anything. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about the painting process and how I often have no idea where a painting is going to go when I start painting. So for me, there's usually no defined path when I start a painting. I might have looked at a few of my sketchbook pages and have the vaguest of ideas, but it's definitely not a plan or a destination. It's just a spark that I like to respond to. And then once there's actually paint on the page, once I've put a few marks or a bit of colour on the paper, then I'm responding to what's in front of me, and it's just a decision, solving a problem, thinking about what I like, thinking about what the painting needs, and it's a sort of process of discovery. And I really love that sense of adventure when I'm painting. So when I'm using acrylics, for me, my paintings are all about layer, 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 layer. One painting could have, I don't know, 10 layers of paint, and those initial layers can be really sort of carefree and bold, because I know that only fragments of those initial layers will show through at the end painting. So I might start with, I don't know, something like this. This is just a scrap, it's not an actual painting, but that is the sort of first layer where I'm putting down paint, thinking about colours, not trying to create a composition or a painting, just laying down paint so there's a starting point. And I might do a couple of layers like that, letting each one dry in between. And then it's only probably in about the third or fourth layer that then I'm starting to think about actually what are the little sections and passages that I'm enjoying and I want to remain visible at the end. And it's then at that middle stage where I might start to add bold shapes that sort of define the composition of the painting. And then each subsequent layer after that, I'll be making smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller moves. So I might come back to a painting, I don't know, 10, 20 times. And I'm not saying that this is the way to paint, I'm just saying this is the way I like to paint. I enjoy this process of construction. I tend to start with a bit of chaos, and then when I'm midway through the painting, I will define the very loose composition, so the boldest, biggest areas of shape. And then I just keep coming back and coming back and coming back and adding in layers, trying to create a cohesive whole. So a painting that feels interesting and good to me. So these are the 8 paintings that I've just finished. And these 4 here, I've decided to call the buttonkeepers series because these colourful round dots and circles just connected me back to a lovely memory from my childhood. So these are now finished, stylised still lives. So I started these with squares of paint, and then I've come in and added another layer of paint, and then I've added another layer of paint and another layer of paint. So they have a sort of rich tactile surface, which I really enjoy. My hope is that they feel both sort of nostalgic and modern, that they have a boldness and an intimacy. So acrylic paint on paper, I use different kinds of paint. I used a high flow paint which acts a little bit more like an ink, and I also used a heavy body paint, using a different combination of paints to create different effects really. And then these 4 paintings started in a similar direction and then went in completely different ways. And I think this is one of the things that I really enjoy about painting, and I think it demonstrates how I just respond to the painting, and it can take me in a completely different direction. This one is extremely patterned and decorative and detailed, and it's got sort of obsessive marks on it. And then these paintings here have a really different feel. They don't feel like they're from the same family. They have a bold openness, more gestural. It sort of demonstrates my two sensibilities. I love a gestural mark, but I also love decoration and detail. And I think that's part of why I lived with them for a little bit, because I just wanted to make sure they were done. And I just kept coming back and coming back and coming back to these paintings and thinking, do they need more detail in them? Are they a little bit spare? Are they a little bit sparse? And what I decided is that I thought they actually were finished. And I really like the spaciousness of them. But I also really enjoy the decorative, patterned nature of this one. So I never know where my paintings are going to go when I start to paint them. I've been reading about the Australian artist John Olsen. He described painting as a means of self-enlightenment. And I thought that was so interesting. I think that I learn quite a lot about myself as I'm painting. The process of painting can be quite revealing. There's no one way to construct or develop a painting. I think it's just really important to have a painting process that you enjoy. So for me, I enjoy the sense of going out into the unknown, of trying to find my way through to something interesting. I like that sense of adventure in a painting. I like that sense of not knowing where I'm going and seeing if I can kind of work it out on the way. And that's why I paint in the way I do. It's a reflection of the things that I enjoy in life, really. Problem solving, a bit of adventure, a curiosity about how to take something that isn't working and try and make it work. A sort of sense of perseverance in a way. The painting process can reveal things about ourselves. And often I think the process and the way we choose to construct an artwork, or the process that we choose to use, is a reflection of who we are and maybe what we're seeking in life or what we find rewarding. And you know, sometimes I have no idea what a painting is about until I've got to nearly the end. And in these paintings, as I was painting them, I just had this really clear visual memory, which I think I've mentioned to you about when I was little. My mum used to give me a big wooden tray and buttons, and I would play with the buttons on the tray, and I'd rearrange the colours and I'd put them in different colour order. And that visual sensibility, that visual memory is somehow embedded in my psyche. And that symbolism only occurred to me as I was painting these paintings. And as I sort of slowed down to think, there's something in these paintings that is really speaking to me, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then when I put my finger on it, it was so obvious. And that was a really lovely discovery. So while these paintings are about memories of a button box and a sense of home and a sense of nostalgia, these paintings are about freedom and wildness and adventure. I enjoy about painting is the discovery. What I learn about myself, what I learn about what I like in my own paintings, and we'll all have a different set of sensibilities and preferences. I love a painting with layers of history and layers of meaning and like lots of paint. See, where you can really see the brush marks in the paint, you can see, you know, my hand embedded in the painting. There's something very tactile that I really enjoy about that. But other people may not like that at all in their paintings. It's such a personal preference. Our paintings have to reflect who we are as people, don't they? I think the way we choose to paint and what we choose to paint and what we enjoy in our own paintings is so personal and can also be really revealing. I really feel that I've learned quite a lot about myself through the painting process. I love the fact that something slowly reveals itself, that something develops over time, that there's a sort of a history, a whole sort of set of experiences embedded into the paint. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening and being so kind and encouraging, and I wish you every success with your own creative endeavours.